Today we're going to be talking about Stinkin Thinkin. And sometimes we, maybe especially I, need a little reminder of the dangers of our thoughts, my thoughts. In Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 7, it says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." What you think says everything about you. Pardon me. What you think will ultimately reveal itself one way or another. If it's on your mind, sooner or later, it will be on your tongue. You change your mind, you change your life. For as he thinks in his heart, so he is. Solomon said, "My son, if your heart is wise, my heart will rejoice. Indeed, I myself, yes, my inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak right things." Psychologist Albert Ellis is credited with coining the phrase "stinking thinking" to describe the human tendency to persistently engage with thoughts that do not serve us. Today I want to look at 4 different aspects of stinking thinking. I have to tell you that I have borrowed from different sources. Aside from Solomon, aside from Matthew's Gospel, aside from what Jesus said, stinking thinking produces stinking attitudes. Attitude is everything. You may have heard that on the job. You may have heard that at home. You may have heard that by your teachers. Do you know how true that is? Attitude is everything. Proverbs 14:16 says, "A wise man fears and departs from evil, but the fool rages and is self-confident." Confidence, we are told, is a good thing, and it is. Even self-confidence. But arrogance is a bad thing. Arrogance is a stinking attitude. Arrogance can lead us down a bad trail. People without wisdom generally have bad attitudes. People can usually see your attitude long before they hear your words. Now, I promised that I wouldn't get too political in my sermons, other than to say I think we can all agree there's plenty of arrogance floating around the political circles these days, on the news programs, and people that love to be heard. There's a story in Greek mythology about a young man named Narcissus. Narcissus was a young man, and he was a beautiful young man, and he was out hunting one day, and he noticed his reflection in a pool. Narcissus became so enamored with himself in the pool that he just went back again and again and again to look at himself. Well, the old story goes that eventually Narcissus turned into a flower. And he loved himself so much that eventually became depraved and decrepit and died. To this day, you will find that narcissists don't apologize. They're love for self just won't allow it. You may know a narcissist. You may be a narcissist. And if you are somebody who has such an attitude that you can't apologize for things done wrong, then you may just be a narcissist. One preacher said concerning bad attitudes, everybody else can see it and smell it, but the person with the bad attitude doesn't, because they are so used to the smell it doesn't even bother them anymore. A stinking attitude affects our vision of ourselves. Personally, I have a wife that helps with that. When I get to thinking I'm beautiful and can't get away from the pool and my reflection in it, she might say things like, well, you're not quite as beautiful as you think you are. However, there was one day this last week when she clearly thought I was cute. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 14 says, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. A stinking attitude will eventually turn their owners over to their own devices. Proverbs 1:31. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way and be filled to the full with their own fancies. You won't change them because they can't smell their own stinking thinking or attitude. But that part was not in Scripture, that's all mine. Secondly, stinking thinking produces stinking language. I'm not necessarily talking about the filthy words that come out of our mouths or the cussing words, the cursing, but the language that thinking produces. And not to say that filthy words or language can't also come from stinking thinking and that affecting our mind, but I'm talking about the language that produces hate or criticisms. I'm guilty of it myself. I am sometimes a terrible example of what it means to keep stinking thinking at bay. I remember my mother saying when I was a boy, Denny, you've got to start thinking before you speak. I was third son. My brothers could do everything better than me. So I became the criticizing king. Unfortunately, I still have some of those characteristics. So every now and again, I need to preach this sermon to remind me that my stinking thinking not only produces a bad attitude, but it can also produce stinking language. And those around me, again, my poor dear wife, at times, maybe all the time, gets pretty sick and tired of listening. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who live it will eat its fruit. If you can say it, then you believe it. Sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. No greater lie has ever been told than that. Words do hurt. Have you ever said something to somebody and said, I take it back? Do you really get to take it back? We don't. Words hurt. And to say, I didn't mean it, well, That's hard for anybody to believe, because usually before words come out of the mouth, they are elsewhere. What comes out of your mouth is what you believe. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "Brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good things. And an evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth evil things. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, you will give account of it in the days of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." Paul said to the Colossians, "Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how to answer one another." Stinking thinking produces stinking actions. It's been said that some of the meanest people sit in church pews. It's because of stinking thinking, and it reflects on the church as well, unfortunately. That's why so many think the church is full of hypocrites. Is it? Maybe it is. The old adage goes like this: the army of God is the only army that shoots its wounded. There are some who, because of stinking thinking, manifesting in stinking actions, have done things unseemly to one another, to others. This should not be so. Paul said to the Romans in chapter 12:17, "Repay no evil for evil. Have regard for the good things in the sight of the Lord." Paul said to the Thessalonians in his first letter, 5:15, "See that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always pursue what is good, both for yourselves and for all." Peter said, 1 Peter 3:8-9, "Finally, all of you be like-minded. Be sympathetic. Love one another. Be compassionate and humble. Do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called, so that you may inherit a blessing." Stinking thinking, number 4, produces stinking vision and hearing. Have you ever heard someone say, "You're not seeing the whole picture"? Pardon me. You're not seeing the whole picture. Or maybe they say, "You're only seeing what you want to see." It's the same thing with hearing. You only hear what you want to hear. Some people never see or hear the whole picture, but only what they want to see or hear. Jesus said in Matthew 13, "Therefore I speak to them in parables. Because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand." He goes on, "And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, Hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes have closed. Lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them." The essential need for proper vision and hearing is right thinking. Again, the essential need for proper vision and hearing is right thinking. Stinking thinking will only produce a clouded mindset that allows for obscured spiritual vision and hearing. Jesus said, again, you will see and not perceive, for the hearts of this people have grown dull, their ears are hard of hearing. Proverbs says, chapter 18:21, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Philippians 4:13, and this is going to be our text for this next coming Sunday, because we're going to be talking next week about how to get rid of stinking thinking. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, think on these things. Denny, you've got to think before you speak. I was born with a full vocabulary. I came out of the womb speaking paragraphs. You believe that? I was 6 months old to the day when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I remember hearing that on TV, and I sat up in my crib and I said, Mom, the president had just been shot. Not true. But my mother says I learned to talk early. And if you know me very well, you probably know that I never learned the art of not speaking. That's been extra hard for me. Another thing that's been extra hard for me is that I form my opinions very quickly. And I don't always get the trap shut before they come out of my mouth. And I have spent a great amount of time in my life going back to apologize for something I have said. The reason I say these things about myself is because they're true, number one. And number two, it's been a lifelong struggle. And maybe it's a struggle that you also have, because we all form our prejudices early. Somebody might say, well, I'm not prejudiced. Yeah, you are. We all are. It might be racial. It might be whatever. Short people hate tall people. Tall people hate short people. Skinny people hate fat people. Fat people hate skinny people. We all have formed some kind of prejudice. We lived in Texas for 6 years, and for 6 years they reminded me I was not from there. Just so you know, the war's not over in the South. That might serve as a reminder for you if you go south. We all have prejudice. Things happen and our prejudices get stronger. Something good happens and maybe our prejudices get a little weaker. But eventually those prejudices and that stinking thinking comes out of our mouth. And who's listening? Children are not born into this world with a lot of the prejudices that we instill upon them. We must be more careful. How many times has my wife had to say to me in the presence of grandchildren, I see all the grandmas elbowing their husbands. Carla would say to me, look down there. I guarantee you if I say it, my grandson's going to say it. Or my granddaughter, and I won't tell you which one. You can figure that out on your own. We must be more careful. How do we build hate? We repeat lies. We repeat gossip. We repeat prejudices. But if we fill our hearts and minds with things that are good, again, self-reminder, if we fill our hearts and minds with things that are good, and pray for our enemies, well, maybe what comes out of our mouths will be a little bit more graceful, kind. I spend a certain amount of time with people that use horrible language, as do you. And you have to wonder in your mind and heart, what kind of life must they have? Sometimes the prejudices are very clear and open because of the language that comes out. Where do children learn such language? We know, don't we? And a lot of the language that we use just doesn't make any sense. Well, maybe what's in our hearts, in our minds, doesn't make much sense either. Is it any wonder that there's trouble in the workplace, or in the home, or God forbid, in the church? We've got to be more careful. Next week we're going to talk about how to get rid of stinking thinking. It will be in Philippians. We're going to talk about taking on the mind of Christ, who even when he was being attacked, chose not to verbally attack those who were even doing him harm. The person who can think before they speak and not offend too quickly, that kind of person is very rare. And when we find them, we appreciate them. I have a special gift of hurting those I love. I know I seem extremely charming to you, but those that I am the closest to don't always see that same person. This is one of those sermons where somebody might say, well, when you're pointing a finger at us, you're pointing 3 back at yourself. Because I am. Because it hurts me to know how much I have hurt others. We have a saying in Celebrate Recovery, hurt people, hurt people. Is there anything like me that you need to come clean about? to your spouse, to your sibling, to your children. I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Can do wonderful things. Well, there's a fourth part to that. Do not repeat. Because we're all capable. Is it any wonder the world looks at the church? They're not looking at our knowledge. They're looking at what comes out of our mouth. How we speak, how we act, how we treat others, our prejudices. We are fools to try to grow the church, to try to grow attendance until we get the tongue under control. Because you know how many chances you get to make a first impression? One. That's why I spent so much time going back to apologize. I'm going to do a sermon sometime on the best ways to apologize. I've used them all. And if I'm not apologized to you yet, well, I'll be around. Because I'll say something or do something that will require me to make it right. That's how we build relationships. Well, let's sing our song and we'll pray.